Welcome, 6th grade historians. Seriously, get ready to travel back in time with me today. Okay, let's dive into this. For today's explainer, we are uncovering the secrets of one of the absolute most legendary, insanely wealthy, and just plain fascinating civilizations in human history, the ancient African kingdom of Ghana. We're going to explore exactly how this kingdom built its mind-boggling wealth, the incredibly powerful kings who ruled it, and the lasting mark they left on the world map. So buckle up, because this is a story of power, survival, and a whole lot of glittering riches. But before we get to the kings and the giant empires, I have a very serious, kind of absurd question for you. Would you trade a huge pile of glittering gold for a pile of ordinary everyday salt, like the stuff on your French fries? If you're sitting in your classroom right now, you're probably thinking, no way, gold is worth way more. But back in ancient times, the answer was a massive, resounding yes. You see, while gold was beautiful and the ultimate symbol of wealth, salt was literally an absolute necessity for human survival. Before refrigerators were even a thought, salt was pretty much the only way to preserve food so it wouldn't spoil. Plus, in the intense baking heat of the African climate, human bodies desperately needed salt just to survive and stay hydrated. That basic, everyday fact of survival is the very foundation of the massive empire we are studying today.
So, here is our roadmap for the explainer, just so you know exactly how we'll uncover the secrets of this ridiculously wealthy civilization. 1. Meet the Ghana Empire. 2. The gold and salt trade. 3. The kings of gold. 4. The empire's decline. And 5. A lasting golden legacy.
Let's jump right into Section 1. Meet the Ghana Empire.
This early West African empire really started its rise to prominence around the 8th century CE. It hit its absolute peak, like a true golden age of wealth and commerce, during the 9th and 10th centuries, before eventually declining and fragmenting in the 11th century. Geographically speaking, if you pull up a modern map of Africa, the ancient Ghana Empire flourished right in the area that is now southeastern Mauritania and western Mali. It was one of the earliest known empires in West Africa, basically acting like a giant gateway between northern Africa and the lands down south.
Now, I've got a little historical secret just for you, class. While we call it the Ghana Empire today, the people who actually lived there didn't call it that at all. The true historical name for this ancient African kingdom is Ouagadougou. The term Ghana was actually just the title given to their ruler, which literally meant warrior king. But over time, the traders and outsiders who visited just started calling the entire region by the king's title. So, whenever you hear Ghana Empire, you can totally impress your friends and teachers by letting them know you're actually talking about the mighty kingdom of Ouagadougou.
Section 2. The gold and salt trade. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how they built a completely mind-blowing trade monopoly.
Picture this. To the south of the empire were these incredibly dense forests where massive amounts of gold were mined. Just tons of it. But to the north lay the vast, super dry, scorching Sahara Desert, which contained these huge, heavy slabs of rock, salt. The people living up north had all this salt but desperately wanted gold to trade for luxury goods. Meanwhile, the folks down south had all the gold, but desperately needed salt to survive the heat and keep their food from rotting. And guess who sat directly in the middle of these two vastly different regions? Yep, the Ghana Empire.
Controlling the flow of those goods is exactly what made the empire impossibly rich. It's a simple cause and effect. Step 1, traders would brave the brutal conditions of the Sahara Desert to bring goods south, while others brought gold north. Step 2, they all had to pass right through Ouagadougou, which strictly controlled the only safe trade routes. And Step 3, the real kicker. The kings of Ghana charged a massive tax. Every single merchant had to pay a tax in gold or goods just to enter the empire, and then get this, they had to pay another tax when they left. It's like running a giant toll booth where everyone passing by has to hand over a piece of gold. That is exactly how the Ghana Empire built its incredible, unmatched wealth. Section 3. The Kings of Gold. And this brilliantly illustrates what all that massive wealth actually bought them.
The rulers of this empire became so unbelievably wealthy and famous that across the entire ancient world, they were simply known as the Ghana Kings of Gold. How epic of a nickname is that? But it wasn't just for show. These rulers held immense power and exerted vast influence over basically all the surrounding regions. Because they controlled the money, they could afford huge, super well-equipped armies to protect their precious trade routes and keep the peace. I mean, when you are literally the king of gold, everyone listens to you.
At the very center of all this power was the empire's magnificent capital city, Kumbi Saleh. Now, don't picture some quiet, dusty outpost. Kumbi Saleh was a super bustling, cosmopolitan center of commerce and culture, just teeming with energy. It was a massive urban center that was actually split into two distinct towns. You had one town entirely for the king and his royal court, and another whole town just for the wealthy merchants and scholars. The air would have been completely filled with the sounds of a dozen different languages, the smell of exotic spices, and the constant clinking of gold and trade goods.
The markets in Kumbi Saleh were incredibly diverse. You had traders arriving from the far northern reaches of Africa. You had merchants who had traveled all the way from the Middle East. And you had traders coming up from the deep forests of sub-Saharan Africa. Kumbi Saleh was the ultimate ancient meeting point. It was this vibrant place where ideas, religion, art, and cutting-edge technology were exchanged just as eagerly as gold and salt.
Moving to Section 4, the Empire's Decline. Because, as we know in history, even the absolute most prosperous kingdoms eventually face heavy challenges.
By the 11th century CE, this mighty superpower began to fragment. There were three main factors that brought down the empire. First up, internal conflicts. As the empire grew, different groups inside its borders started fighting for control. Second, external pressures. Obviously, neighboring kingdoms saw Ghana's massive wealth and, well, they wanted a piece of it, which led to constant invasions and battles. And third, perhaps the most damaging of all, were shifts in the trade routes. When new gold mines were discovered further east, the merchants simply bypassed Ghana completely, taking their trade and all that sweet tax money right with them. Without that constant heavy flow of wealth, regional rulers began declaring their independence, and the great empire just slowly broke apart.
Section 5. A lasting golden legacy. Let's move to Nisa and see how this builds a history that is still totally relevant today.
You see, Wagadu laid the direct bedrock foundation for the famous West African empires that followed. The Ghana Empire proved without a doubt that a massive, centralized, wealth-driven state could absolutely exist and thrive in West Africa. When Ghana fell after the 11th century, the mighty Mali Empire rose right up to take its place, absorbing many of its people and trade networks. And centuries later, the Songhai Empire would follow that exact same blueprint. The Ghana Empire was truly the granddaddy of them all.
So the crucial point is that the Ghana Empire didn't just build a local economy. Not at all. They contributed to vast, incredibly complex trade networks that permanently connected the African continent with the wider world. They established reliable routes through the seemingly impossible barrier of the Sahara Desert, creating real global commerce long before the modern era. They proved that through organization, protection, and some very clever taxation, a thriving, globally connected civilization could absolutely flourish.
Today, modern archaeological digs have actually uncovered the stone ruins of Kumbi Saleh. The foundations of those once bustling markets and grand royal palaces still stand out there in the sand as a silent, powerful reminder of Ghana's thriving civilization. And it leaves us with a totally fascinating thought to end our explainer today. If the kings of gold, with all their immense, unimaginable wealth and power, left behind stone ruins in the sand, what parts of our own modern civilization will survive to tell our story in 1,000 years? Think about that as you head to your next class. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.